Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the High Ticket Coaching and Consultant Strategy and Growth Show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private Facebook community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, then definitely come check us out. We definitely love to have you. That community was put together specifically for coaches, consultants, and service providers who are serious about getting up to that 6 and that 7-figure level. So if that's you, definitely come check us out. So that being said, I want to introduce you to one of the members of our community, Vera. Welcome, Vera.
Hello, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me, Extus.
Awesome. You're welcome. So tell us, what is it that you do?
Yes, well, I'm a creative soul, a visual storyteller, a photographic artist, and an inspirational speaker.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also a trained educator and a coach, and I've lived through many overwhelming experiences in my life, from domestic violence and sexual assault to surviving a near fatal coma from my incurable immune disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I do is I share my creative process with others for how I've overcome these massive challenges and adversity in my life and use these experiences to my advantage through my artworks. Now, I help inspire others by sharing my stories of how I've learned to light up and colour that dark place inside that harboured all the strong negative emotions as a result of those heartbreaking experiences. Wow, that's a bit of a mouthful, but that's how my life's played out so far. It's really quite incredible what I've come through and I make a fantastic book. But in the meantime, while I work out when I write my book, I'm going to use my ability to inspire change in others, to help them see how they can find their own voice and step into their own courageous and authentic self, to reconnect with their call through various processes I've applied on my own journey that I know work and have literally saved my life on a number of occasions. So, in summary, I show people how they can turn their adversity into their advantage.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. So when did you when did you decide to start actually helping others?
Yeah, so I've actually always helped people. I've always been a leader and I've always been an educator. I have a Bachelor of Applied Science and Teaching, and I used to be a teacher, and that was from my love of basically interacting with people and helping them. I was also a coach for a long part of my life. But as life took me on a different path, what I discovered was there was a real need, excuse me, there was a real need for people to be able to have someone who's not only gone through adversity in their life, but has worked out a way to share their experiences, particularly when it's difficult topics, to be able to have the courage and step into that courage to actually share those experiences with people and inspire other people to say, you know what, hearing you talk has made me feel courageous enough or made me feel strong enough or made me feel worthy enough to share my story too. So that process started quite some time ago. It really started when I went through domestic violence support groups. And from there, it's just pretty much been something that I do all the time. But in terms of a business, my art business, I started that quite a few years ago. And I also live with chronic illness and disability. So I had to put that aside a number of times in my life. But recently, I've been doing so much better and my conditions are a lot more under control. So I've gone back into fully fledged selling my artworks again, but the focus is actually on sharing my story, sharing with people that inspiration and ways that they can feel inspired themselves. And because I use my creative process through my artwork to do that, I help other artists and photographers to learn how to tap into that basically open-ended well of inspiration that sometimes they've lost their path and lost their way about how to access that.
Yeah, awesome. So what type of art is it? Painting? What type of art do you do?
So I do a whole different range of different types of art. Depends on the process and what I'm trying to get out of it, but the majority of what I do is digital photographic art. So everything starts as a photo, and the process that I go through is I actually strip everything back out of the photo and I get down to the bare bones or framework of the image. So it might be patterns, light and shadow, and all of this models a process of what I've found works going through trauma recovery as well. And then I layer back in layer by layer, colour and complexity. So in the end, I like to call the end pieces the destination, but it's the journey and the process of stripping back, getting right back to the bare bones and the core, and then gradually adding in layer by layer into the works. So you essentially go through a whole journey just to arrive at what started out as an image, got deconstructed, and then it ended up as a completely different layered in piece of artwork that are really quite amazing journey in themselves. But the destination is not the piece of artwork itself, because everybody that looks at the pieces of artwork can take their own journey through that piece as well. And then when that's coupled with the inspirational speeches and the types of challenges that I run on Facebook, then people can be a real part of that process, and they can even find out how to do it for themselves as well.
Awesome. Now you got me wanting to see some of those before and after photos of what you did so far. You don't have any sitting around, do you?
I don't actually know, but I have plenty around of the end pieces. Yes.
Love it, love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So when it comes to that, so you do that, do you teach others how, you said you teach others how to do it as well too?
Well, I don't teach others the actual process of the art itself. What I teach them is the process of how to get back to the core of themselves, how to reconnect. So basically how to take their adversity and make it their advantage, learning how to apply the right mindset, learning how to break down the culture of that self-destructive thinking and really work out who they are and who they want to be, accepting that they can look at themselves in the mirror and accept exactly who they are at that moment and work towards who they want to be as the best version of themselves. That process is what I use to then use the artwork and a creative process to immerse yourself in that process itself, if that makes sense.
Okay. Now, so with the artwork, are you saying that so do you do the artwork for them as well? How do you, or is it just like you use it as a way to explain what you do?
Correct. So I use it as a way to illustrate that my process works. So what I do often on my weekly lives, and what I will be doing a lot in my Facebook challenge groups, is showing a piece of artwork and explaining basically what the artwork means. So how it speaks to me. So what emotions was I going through? What was it that I first looked at to capture my inspirational idea, and creating that, going through a set process to then come up with an end result. But I explain how it's actually more about the process of doing that than it is about the end result itself. So for example, a lot of people have seen or understand what mandalas are, but not everyone's realized that you can take a basic mandala, which is almost like what I used to say to people is like the adults coloring book. You know, when you're a kid, you get coloring books and you color them in. Mandalas can be used the same way for adults. And it's actually a fantastic process because you learn to be focused on what you're doing and be present in the moment. And what you find is that emotions come up. So it might be related to the colors of, you know, you might be using pencils, you might be using pastels, you might be using textures or paint. All of these things gives you a different sensory experience. And if you really immerse yourself in that process and just don't think about what you're actually doing, just do it. Just grab the color that speaks to you at that moment and start using it. It is a really interesting process, and things will come up. Emotions will come up, or you'll remember things. And that is sort of like the way that you can start that process of the healing, I suppose. So it's less about what you create, and it's more about the process of going through and actually trusting that process, trusting that you can be with yourself in that dark space if you need to be, and that you can work through it and that you're going to be okay at the end of the day. And through that process, then with someone like myself who can actually help to support you through that process of learning good ways, positive ways to work through those emotions and move on.
Have you always, have you always been an artist?
Yes, I've always been an artist, but I always tell a story that I nearly stopped doing art completely in year 11 because I had an art teacher who basically ruined my idea. I was one of these students that I loved school and I loved working really hard and getting good grades. And we had this one particular art project where he asked us to take, it was an art project about cubism. He asked us to take an idea and essentially deconstruct it, like the process I was telling you that I do now, and then reconstruct something. So I did, and you know, there was a lot of back and forth and checking in on this project at different stages. And we got to, I think, 1 or 2 weeks left of this like couple of months long project. And he decided to tell me that he thought I'd gone down the wrong path. even though the whole way along he was like, yes, it's fine, yes, it's fine, yes, it's fine. Then he goes right at the end, no, I think you need to start again. I don't think you're going to pass with what you've done. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, I think you'll fail if you hand in what you've been working on the last couple of months. So I was like, no, this is no good. I can't fail the subject. So I went back and I tried, frantically in a week to get something else done, changed the whole concept based on what he told me I sort of had to do to pass, handed it in and got a D. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. I'm like a straight A student. Why did you give me a D? And he said to me, which I never understood at the time, but I do now as an adult and having gone through many experiences in my life. He said to me, let this be a lesson to you, not to let anyone else tell you what to do and how to do it. And it was really a lesson about learning that I am my own unique self and I need to believe that what I'm doing is the right thing for me. So I have a destiny, or I have a path, or I have a way of doing things that works for me, and not to let other people bully me into changing that. So it was a lesson that, although I didn't understand at the time, it's been very useful later on.
Oh,
So
goodness.
yes, I've always been an artist. That nearly killed my art life, but I've always done it on the side, and certainly going through a lot of pretty heavy stuff and trauma recovery. It was actually art that reconnected myself to who I really am. And so I've embraced that and I've moved forward and I've used that adversity to my advantage.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So you basically use art to be able to help you solve the problems you were kind of facing with in your
For
life.
myself personally, yes, absolutely. I give another example. I've had a number of times that I've nearly died in my life because of a couple of incurable diseases I have. And one of those left me in a coma. Coming out of that coma, all I can say is that from the darkness that I was in for those days, green had never looked so green on the leaves of trees. The blue in the sky had never looked so blue before. And I realized those things hadn't changed, but I had changed through that experience. And in recovering from that experience, because it took my body a good couple of months to get over that particular trauma, basically I went and recovered at my parents' house, had my camera with me, sat down on a chair because that was about all I could do, with my oxygen tank with me, and spent days just photographing flowers in her garden. From there, I created a whole book about motherhood, which has gone out in limited edition runs and inspired many mothers along the way to keep living and to know that, sometimes when these massive things happen in our life, it's actually simplifying things that makes a big difference for us. That's what can help us gain clarity. That's what can help us choose life. And that's what can help us know deep down that we are worth something and, just regain that connection again.
Mm-hmm. I love what you said there as far as when we find ourselves in these massive situations. So there's this massive things going on. It's the best thing is to simplify, right? That's so powerful.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why I've started the 5 Ways in 5 Days series. So with the challenges that I'm running on Facebook, the first one is the 5 Ways to 5 Days, Create and Inspire. So teaching artists and photographers who already have those creative skills, how they can tap back into that inspiration again. The other 5 Ways in 5 Days series that I've created is the Why Me VLD, which is all about people who've gone through significant adversity in their life. So whether it's chronic illness, domestic violence, sexual assault, morbid obesity, depression, all the things that I've been through, for example, to actually realize that woe is me, that why me, why did this happen to me attitude is not going to help them get through life. It's not going to help them get past that trauma, and it's not going to help them reconnect with themselves. So instead of thinking why me, it's a question. It teaches them through a creative process that they can start thinking why me, and saying why me. Why did I go through this experience? What is it unique to me that I can use as my voice, as my true authentic voice for my own experience to go and help other people, just as I've done by speaking to, whether it's a very large group or one-on-one, to people who've gone through something, or perhaps they haven't, and I'm just enlightening them by sharing my experience, that they actually realize how we all have that strength inside. So it doesn't matter how many things are coming at us from different directions, we can always come back to our core unique self and say, you know what, this is why me.
Yeah, and in today's day and age, it's so powerful because what I like to say is that we're all connected, right? So we're on the internet with them, especially with the COVID-19 going on, to where everyone is
Yes.
just pushed to being home, being online, and it's like I believe that before it felt like the world was such a huge place. I mean that everyone thought like the problems they faced, it was just unique to them, right? It's like, oh, it's my problem, no one understands. But I believe that if once you do get to a point of sharing whatever you can actually like sharing whatever you've been through, it's so powerful because there's so many other people who could relate and who want to relate and who need that support, and just getting to a point where you can put your message out there and share it with the world is just so powerful, because not only could you help others, but you could actually build a business doing this, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, that's part of the, from adversity to advantage mindset. Yes, I'm building a business out of this, but that's only because I have so much to offer people. And it's like, well, when people hear me speak, and literally this happens every single time that I do any sort of public speaking, they will come up to me, tears streaming down their face, telling me how much I've touched their heart, telling me how listening to my story, they know of someone who's been through something similar, or they've been through it themselves, or, whatever it might be, that they've just been so touched that someone could go through so much and still be coming out the other end, not only sharing their experience, but smiling and enjoying life. And like you said, it's all about connection. And I always tell people, together we achieve more. Part of that is sharing. And like I've said, a lot of these topics can be quite heavy. So when you're talking about domestic violence, you're talking about sexual assault, these are not things that are easy to speak about. I'll share just a brief little story. For a 2-year period, I literally had no voice. I had my vocal cord paralyzed to keep me breathing because of my particular condition was actually suffocating me. So for that 2-year period, I had to work out ways of communicating that didn't use my voice. So it was a very interesting process for me to have to go through to work out, well, how do I communicate on a daily level with people when, I need to be able to do this. And they looking at me, they couldn't tell I couldn't talk. I just looked normal. But, it was obvious when they'd speak to me, I couldn't speak back. So it was all about thinking outside the box, looking at things from a very different perspective. And certainly I can tell you my artwork got a lot more intense during that period. And that's one of the things that I talk about with people. But the fact that after 2 years of battling that, and now thankfully there's a new treatment that is helping me immensely, and I've no longer had to have my vocal cord paralyzed, I have a voice again. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to use my voice to communicate and to share and to help people to understand that we all have that strength, and that yes, the journey can be very difficult. It can be very challenging, it can be very heavy, very burdensome, but you always have a choice how you're going to react to a situation. You always have a choice whether you're going to listen to that negative or you're going to speak positivity back into your life.
I love it. So powerful, so powerful. So in essence, what would you say is one skill you've mastered, um, or one skill you really are really good at that's really helped you create the level of success you've created for yourself today?
Yeah, so I'm very, very good at simplifying things. So in all those complexities, it's very easy to get very caught up in all the, mess that's going on in here. And I'm very good at simplifying, breaking things down and helping people to do that, and to work through a process where we can get to the bare bones. And like I said, that the process I do with my artwork, it's a unique way that I can help to illustrate that process and work through these things with my clients.
Mm-hmm. Love it, love it. Awesome, awesome, Verily. Well, hey, who would you say is the best person that would benefit from what is that you do?
Yes, so visual artists and photographers that are feeling like they've got a bit of creative block, they want a community of creative people to work with, they'd be perfect for my 5 Ways in 5 Days to Creative Inspiration Challenge, for example. And folks who are going through some sort of adversity, like who've gone through domestic violence, sexual assault, people who are living with a chronic illness, particularly severe asthma and vocal cord dysfunction, because they are the illnesses that I deal with on a daily basis. I can certainly help them by sharing my experiences, offer advice for different things, but particularly I can understand a lot of what they're going to be going through because I've gone through it myself. But as I said, the unique thing that I do is integrating that process with the artwork and creative thinking, and simplifying things.
Yeah, love it, love it.
Yeah,
Awesome, Verily. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate it. If
you're
someone
welcome.
wanted to reach out, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yes, so my website, veraleeoriginal.com, and I'll give you the link for that later. And certainly they can find me on any social media at Vera Lee Original.
Awesome, love it, love it. Well, hey, thanks again for being here today. Really appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts before we end?
I think what you're doing is fantastic, Extus, and I look forward to people reaching out to me. If I can help, I will. And certainly the challenges are going to be something very exciting, and creating a community for people, of like-minded people, so that again, we're looking at that connection. Together we can achieve more.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy.